But let's get into these questions. So the first one comes from Bill M. in West Ashley. And I'm going to start off kind of simple here. He says, what is a seller's market and what is a buyer's market? I think oftentimes you guys don't understand that we don't speak your lingo. Good point. So let me make this very simple. A seller's market is when demand outweighs supply, which creates a shortage of inventory. And the less there is of something, the more a buyer is willing to pay for it. So in a seller's market, increasing demand for homes drives up the prices. So here are some of those drivers of demand. One of them, of course, is economic factors. You know, the local labor market heats up. You bring in an inflow of new residents, and that pushes up home prices because more inventory needs to be built. We've absorbed some of that inventory. Another one could be that interest rates trend downward. You know, it improves affordability, which has been such a problem for us over the past year or so. It's still better overall or historically than it should be. But that's one of the reasons why our market's starting to shift a little bit away from a seller's market, quite frankly. But it creates more buyer interest when interest rates trend downward, particularly for first-time home buyers who can afford either a bigger home or a home in general rather than continuing to rent or live in mom's basement. Another factor that can contribute to a seller's market would be a short-term spike in interest rates. It might compel people that are on the fence to make a purchase because nobody wants to catch a falling sword. You know, if you act now before interest rates go up again, then you've just afforded yourself more home or a better home for the same money. And I think, frankly, we're kind of in that position right now. And the last thing that contributes to a seller's market is low inventory. You know, fewer homes on the market, because of a lack of new construction or because buyers are purchasing pre-owned inventory very quickly, those prices for existing homes go up because there are just fewer of them. So here's the example that I always give when I'm trying to help people understand the difference between the seller's market and the buyer's market. So think of the movies, think of the ones that are based on natural disasters. And you're driving around and all the grocery stores have been looted and, you know, it's you and your family and you see somebody on the side of the road and they're selling a case of water for $100. Well, if water is scarce, you might be willing to pay $100 for that case of water because you don't know when you're going to have the opportunity to buy something you need or want again. So in a buyer's market, obviously it's the complete opposite. Supply outweighs demand, which creates a surplus of inventory, which is, the more there is of something, the less a buyer is willing to pay for it. So the perfect example for that would be, it's not like you're going to pay $100 for a case of water. In fact, let's say that you're going to go to the grocery store and you're looking at all the different kinds of water that you can buy. Well, unless you're married to a certain brand, you're not going to pay $8 to $10 for a case of water. You're going to look for the cases of water that are $4 a piece. You're going to bargain shop. It's because there's a bunch of different options. And so what are some of the things that contribute to a buyer's market? Well, of course, it's characterized by declining home prices and reduced demand. And there are obviously several factors that affect that both long-term and short-term, like economic disruptions. A big employer shuts down, as an example, lays off a huge workforce. Well, that could put a significant supply on the market if these people can no longer afford to keep their homes. Interest rates trending higher is another one. The amount of money that people can borrow to buy a house is reduced because the cost of money is higher. It reduces the total number of potential buyers in a market, which is why sometimes first-time home buyers struggle in markets like this to get into the market because the higher prices go and the more interest rates go up, the less likely they are to be able to afford that entry-level home that, frankly, they want to spend enough money on to be able to own. Just because somebody has a down payment and a decent income doesn't necessarily mean that they want to go and buy a big fixer-upper in an area that they're not really interested in living in. There's still it's not totally driven by the need for home ownership. That need for home ownership, especially among first-time home buyers, is declining. That is a trend that is declining, especially among millennials, by the way. But it's, of course, also characterized by high inventory. So, a new subdivision can create downward pressure on prices of older homes nearby if there are now all these new, pretty, shiny options where you're going to get some brand new appliances, or a credit for something, or your closing costs paid, which is why some sellers oftentimes struggle to compete with new construction because these builders are, they're paying their closing costs. They're also incentivizing the out of the agents. I can tell you right now that there are new construction communities that I can take my team to, and in return for doing so, I can get Yeti coolers, I can get Apple Watches, I can get entered into a chance to go on a cruise, I can get iPads, I can get Visa gift cards. I'm telling you, if I actually didn't care about my time, I could go to all these new construction communities and rack up right now. But that doesn't serve my clients, so I don't. We do at times when I feel that somebody has a product that we need to see and want to see, and it's not about getting something for going, it's about educating my team and then, of course, the public about those options. But there you go. Those are the differences between the buyer's market and a seller's market.